Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Chris, and today I wanted to again share something that's slightly off topic, but I found very interesting. So, today I'd like to discuss with you the 3 Chinese curses. So, again, when you think of a curse, it usually has a negative connotation, right? You think, oh, somebody cursed me, and they wish ill upon me. But the question is, like a lot of things in life, can a blessing also be a curse? And so that's what's very interesting about these 3 Chinese curses, is that they are definitely an example of the double-edged sword. And so the first one is, may you live in interesting times. And so, I mean, when you think about your life, especially when you're younger, you want to live a life of consequence, right? You want to live a life of interesting things and interesting places and people. And so if somebody wished you, may you live in interesting times, you'd probably say, yeah, that's great, sign me up. But as with many things, there's always the double-edged sword, right? Interesting times. I mean, how much more interesting does it get than if you've lived over the last 20, 30, 40 years? I mean, you've had pretty much everything you could possibly think of to be interesting. You've had war, you've had famine, you've had pandemic, you've had terrorism, you've had you've had a lot of breakthroughs in science, in medicine, in literature, in entertainment. There's a full gamut of things that you could say were interesting. But when you look at your own personal situation, has it really brought you joy? Has it brought you fulfillment and happiness? I mean, maybe for some people, but I would say that, as time passes, it definitely seems to be more of the curse than the blessing. That being said, we all have, you have to be thankful for the blessings in your own life and realize that, even if the curse is accurate, it's not necessarily, in every aspect of your life. But again, the fact that, that is a Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times, does say that there's a lot of wisdom to that. People wish to be people of consequence and not to live a boring life, and not be known for anything. People want to live in a time that, other people that would ideally look back on and say, hey, that was a pretty interesting time. If you think about that in general, you think about times like the 1920s, a lot of people reminisce to that, or, the Age of Enlightenment, or different things, different things depending on different person, what your interest is, what your, whatever your particular goals are, whatever. There are different times in our history that you would probably look back to say, I wish I could have lived during that time. Or maybe, I've even heard people say, I should have lived during that time. Or some people believe in past lives. Maybe, they believe that they had, a past life during that time. So again, when you hear that type of thing as a Chinese curse, there's a lot to that. It's pretty deep. So the second one is, may you attract the attention of important people. So again, think about it. If you were told that as a kid, you would probably take that as a compliment. Like, hey, like, of course, like, I want to be important. I want to be, seen, heard. I want my, my opinions and my thoughts to be valued and desired by, a wide variety of people. And as with everything, again, there's a flip side to that, specifically, ironically, with China, the place where the government really does control everything and really has a hand in everything. And everyone could turn on you, anyone and everyone could turn on you in a heartbeat and turn you over to like the government or things like that. It's funny, like I mentioned in my video yesterday, that a lot of people talk about, the United States as big brother, and, oh my God, the government's watching you, and this is all an agenda to obtain, to achieve this or that goal. And, to me, I find it kind of funny, again, there are so many things, like, being an American entails, like, good and bad, and especially the more, like, you are familiar with our history. You know, we often bill ourselves as like the having the moral high ground in a lot of ways. But when you really understand America, like, that's not really the case. And especially, you know, even our recent history, you know, people think about, like, for example, yesterday I talked about a lot about, for example, like 9/11, you know, there's a lot of conspiracy theories of things like that, that people are captivated by. And, you know, it's funny because sometimes there is the seed of truth in things like that, you know, spreads into a wildfire of just going off the deep end. But you look back at things like, for example, Vietnam, you know what I mean? Obviously a very controversial thing in U.S. history. But, you know, there was truth that we did things like the Gulf of Tonkin and things like that were not genuine, you know what I mean? As far as like who we portray ourselves to be as the hero, the savior of democracy and things like that, you know, fighting against the evil cohort of other countries and things like that. So, you know, for someone who lives in China, you know, it's a real thing. Like if the government, you know, you get on the wrong side of the government, it doesn't matter who you are. And that's not just for like the regular people. That's for like, you know, you could be a celebrity, you could be a billionaire. Look at, I forget who the tennis star was, the female tennis star that, you know, pretty much they just kidnap you and put you in a re-education camp. And then, you know, maybe you don't know about that person, but I'm sure you've heard of Jack Ma, who was the founder of Alibaba, I believe. And, you know, he got on the wrong side of you know, the government over there. And he also kind of fell to the wayside for a while. And I think, you know, people don't understand that that's a real thing over there. As much as we love to just, you know, get captivated by these random allegations that, again, Big Brother, Joe Biden's putting the vaccine in me because it's got a microchip and, you know, blah, 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 it's making people infertile, whatever, you know, whatever the conspiracy theory is. You know, in China, those aren't conspiracy theories. I mean, they will literally kidnap you off the street and, you know, put you somewhere where people will forget about you. It's pretty crazy, and it's pretty crazy that things like that exist. But this is what I'm talking about, like, as far as Americans not understanding that the world at large is very different from how it is here. And the things that we hype up as fearful here, I mean, those are things that happen in other places, like in reality. So it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. But again, you know, if someone wished you to attract the attention of important people, again, a lot of people would say, absolutely, sign me up. But there's a cost to it. And then, again, something that we can't fathom here, because as much as we make, you know, a shadow puppet, you know, entity that we fear that, oh, the government, you know, is going to do this or that. I always laugh because I'm just like, who is the government? Like when these people are like, the government's watching you. Okay, well, who is it? Is it my uncle who works for the, you know, for the NSA? Is it, you know, your mom whose brother works for, you know, the Central Intelligence Agency or the FBI, or, you know, are they the ones who are in it? Or is it only like a very select group of people who, you know, are at the upper echelons? Okay, I mean, let's be realistic. I could probably believe that, right? But the question is, who implements their wishes? Who goes and does whatever it is they say? You know, and that's the part that they can never explain. Like, is it, you know, it's always like a boogeyman. Like the people who say they're coming for our guns. Are they? Are they really? Because you look at it and, like, for example, anytime there's a Democratic president, your gun sales go through the roof. So if I was a gun company owner, I'd love it. I'd vote. I would support Democrat representatives and presidential nominees so that my company would do better. Why wouldn't I? Although I would spout probably conservative ideals, but behind the scenes I'd be like, you know what, this is good for sales if you know, certain administrations are installed. But yeah, so like I said, the second one is, you know, attract the attention of important people. A blessing and a curse, depending on where you are. It's a real thing, but more so, I would say, elsewhere than where we are here. And the third one is, may you get everything you wish for. Now that one's an interesting one, right? I mean, just like the first two, on its surface, it's like, well, if I could have everything that I wish for, everything would be perfect, right? But the reality is, like, when you wish for something, it's always a measure of your circumstance. It's where you are now is what you wish for. And, while certain things are pretty universal, like, to not have to worry about money, or that's probably no joke, a universal one. But, what if you were in the middle of the desert and your only wish was to get some water? You know what I mean? How hard would you be wishing for that? So that's a very relative thing. But when you look at the curse, may you get what you wish for. The reality is that, like, again, this is something that, on the surface, if people got what they wished for, you would think that that's going to be a positive no matter what. And the reality is that, again, as with anything, it always comes with unintended consequences. So let's say, for example, let's say you were really noble, and your biggest wish was that there would be world peace. Well, okay, that's a very noble goal, right? But there's so many different ways that could be accomplished. Obviously, some are better than others. But let's say, for example, that was accomplished by a nuclear war where, the vast majority of the population was wiped out. And at that point, it was just survival. The people who did live had just seen, what our greed and what our different, perspectives had led to. And at that point, they were able to achieve world peace. Well, okay, was it worth it? I don't know. Am I one of the ones who survived? I guess that would be important to my perspective as far as whether it was worth it. Oh, and then of course, everyone that I know and care about also has to survive. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure my views on that would be somewhat. What's the word I'm looking for? Somewhat skewed by however that turned out. But again, even when you look at something like that, that's the reason that, a seemingly innocuous and positive statement like, hey, may you get what you wish for, is so double-edged and could be seen as a curse. But anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. And so, like, those are little things. When you look at, Chinese philosophy, Chinese history, they're very fascinating people, and their culture has so much to offer as far as wisdom. There's so many wise philosophies and sayings from that era or from that region of the world that also transcend into other, into other, I guess, philosophies and religions and things like that. But something I wanted to share because I thought it was interesting, and I hope you enjoyed the assortment that I've laid out here. Anyway, that's it. And again, may you attract the attention of important people. May you get everything that you wish for. And last but not least, why can't I remember the third one? May you get everything you wish for. May you attract the attention of important people. Oh, and the most relevant one in the situation that we're in. May you live in interesting times. I'm pretty sure you've all been cursed with that. Anyway, that's it for today. I will see you later.